Good evening. I am honored to share with you a few facts about the mighty Mississippi and its impact on the day's early history. While the first settlement of people in our area, other than Indians, was not, the first settlement of people in our area, other than Indians, was not made until the closing years of the 18th century. We have proof that DeSoto was in our area in 1542. He had to use the Mississippi River and its tributaries to travel to our area. The Spanish and the French used the river for settlement, for trading with the Indians mainly, for use during wars and the spread of religion. The first mention of settlement in the Vidalia area was during the Spanish regime in 1768, and we were called many names but one a post opposite Natchez. Today it has made use of its riverfront for docking, mooring, ferrying, and landing. From the early 1800s, we have records of the use of ferries to move people and goods from Vidalia to Natchez and back. There was a rail ferry operating between Vidalia and Natchez for many years. In a 1901 letter to the Secretary of State, James Madison, Governor W.C.C. Clayton said of Vidalia, "The shores of the Mississippi are fertile beyond description. Its future of productive power and population is beyond the wildest imagination to calculate." The homeseeker, the pioneer, they found fertile ground, magnificent forests, good farming, hunting territory, plus the advantage of trade. It was a land of beauty, dotted with waterways, bayous, and lakes, which made trade in the area very accessible. The river is a priceless natural resource, one of the most important arteries of commerce. Since 9000 BC, native people lived, farmed, and fished all along the river, and of course had to use it for travel. It was a great highway, but the river also had many hazards: rapids, falls, sandbars, attacks by Indians, and river highwaymen. The day's waterfront has served as a means of bartering, trading, selling, all means of commerce, and also warring. Most of the early trade we know was through the swapping of goods, bartering. We know that flatboats, keelboats, broadhorns, and scows stopped at our waterfront. These flatboats and their kindred were built for extended river journeys for farmers and traders, who many times had their families with them. They would have their living quarters for the family, pens for the animals, and covered storage for all goods. These boats were used for other purposes, such as river stores, ministers, galleries for photographers, entertainment boats with gambling, and also shanty boats on which the people lived. We had shanties here in Vidalia when I was in high school. Most were all built like floating forts. If a family decided to settle in the area, they used the wood from the boat to build their cabin. The trips were long, and it depended on where the trip originated and where it ended. Most times, when people reached New Orleans, they sold their wares and their boats because the upriver travel was so treacherous. Steamboats played a major role in the 19th century development of the river and its tributaries by allowing the practical, large-scale transportation of passengers and freight both up and down the river. With the use of steam power, they were built to navigate in shallow waters as well as upriver against the strong currents. Thus, the steamboats replaced all of our flatboats and keels. In 1809, Nicholas Roosevelt, a partner with Fulton and Livingston in their new steamboat enterprise, set out on a trip from Pittsburgh to New Orleans with no wares to sell, with the intention of proving that utilizing steam power for the propulsion of boats was the way of the future for river travel. He undertook the voyage and studied the channel and the current of the river. Later steamboats towed flatboats. After World War I, barge traffic became the successor to the steamboat. But during the war, river crewmen were scarce. Thus, railroads made inways there. Both means of transportation were needed for the war effort. After a period of time, barge transportation became the safest surface mode of transportation and is more fuel efficient than rail. An example, a single barge carries the equivalent of 15 rail cars of tonnage, and on the lower Mississippi, some tows handle 40 or more barges. In the first half of the 19th century, Vidalia was a well-known steamboat town and shipping port. It was a port for shipments of goods, crops, and livestock. Most of the livestock was driven from Mexico and Texas on to Natchitoches and then to Vidalia. Vidalia was known for its famous cattle that came in. Alonzo Smith, who was a famous cattle drover, came to Vidalia to sell his herds of longhorns and livestock, which were loaded onto the awaiting boats at Vidalia for shipment to eastern markets and Spanish territories. Much money changed hands in our little settlement. The drovers spent money in our 12 saloons on the main street and in the gaming parlors. They also made a name for the town. Farnham and Fowler wrote an article in the publication Louisiana Beef Production, labeling Vidalia as the wildest little cow town in America before the Civil War. Then another article says that it was one of the toughest towns in the world. Cotton was a major crop in that area and was a commodity that was shipped from our waterfront. In 1812, Vidalia built the first steam sawmill. In the 90s, we had a cotton gin. In 1910, we had a rice mill. All of this was shipped out of Vidalia. Corn became a major crop. Cattle, hogs, Spanish moss was shipped out, as well as tons of fish. Trafficking of fur-bearing animals was also sent to markets from Vidalia. The lumber industry was flourishing during these days. Just below our town, Vidalia, was the town of Willits, which is a ghost town. It had the largest planer mill in the South in the early 1900s. Early postal mail was sent from Vidalia to Fort Adams and all settlements around, and it was done by river. But our waterfront had many, many problems. Sandbars and currents were the two big ones. I quote from a diary written by Benjamin Hyde, who lived in Vidalia with his family. Vidalia was on the very tip of a narrow neck of the Mississippi River, which had a sandbar which extended approximately 300 feet, and in low water would extend very near the Natchez side. The river, of course, this tells us it was narrow and it was very treacherous, thus causing the widening of the river by the U.S. Corps of Engineers. In the late 30s, the river was widened because we were deemed the narrowest point in the river between Cairo, Illinois, and New Orleans. In order for the river to be widened, the entire town was moved, with the exception of 8 buildings located on the edge of town. river was widened, it was necessary about every 3 to 5 years to have dredge boats on near the banks, and they would dredge the silt and to keep it from building up more sandbars. This activity made safe traffic, or river traffic. It increased the river traffic and allowed larger boats to use this part of the river. My relatives who lived in Vidalia and have them since the 1870s would be so proud of this town today. They experienced many hurdles, hardships, and trials, and the river was one of the biggest. Vidalia experienced 12 major floods, Civil War, and Reconstruction, the fire of 1870, the boll weevil, crop failures, the Great Depression, and then we're told their town would exist no more. That they would have to be moved. The U.S. government, the state, and the levee board gave them these edicts. Vidalians had just seen their sister city, Willits, located some 10 miles below Vidalia, become a ghost town because of the 1927 flood and a disastrous fire. What a fight it was to convince these government agencies that Vidalia would not give up their home turf. The town was fortunate that it had powerful judges, elected officials, and citizens who showed their strength and influence to finally convince the agencies they wanted their town to continue. Thus, the widening of the river gave us many opportunities. Tonight, my wish is that we as citizens and elected officials band together to show the unity and stamina that early Vidalians rejected. Stand up for progress and the common good for all who live in Vidalia and Concordia Parish. Let's make the best use of the river, which caused so many hardships for so many years to overflow. Thank you.